Turning now to ABC Audio's award-winning podcast series, Reclaimed. This season, they are exploring a part of American history that's all too often ignored. It follows the Navajo Nation's generations-long fight for access to clean water.
And joining us now from ABC's KTRK TV station in Houston to tell us all about the lifeblood of the Navajo Nation is reporter Charly Edsitty. Thank you so much for being with us, Charly.
Good to see you.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I think this is something a lot of people will be surprised to hear, that there's such a shortage, a lack of access to water for people in the Navajo Nation. Walk us through this issue.
Yeah, I think this is a part of American history that so many people here in the U.S. don't know about it. So in the podcast, we actually talk about a lot of the history. We take you all the way back to 1922 to a document that's called the Colorado River Compact. And so that document actually split up the Colorado River among 7 different states in the desert Southwest. So keep in mind here, we're talking about the desert where water is scarce. So this was really important to the futures of those 7 states. So who was left out of this compact? It was actually the indigenous tribes who lived in that area and utilized that water for hundreds of years. They were not included, and that right there set the table for what we're seeing now in 2024, where we have tribes like the Navajo Nation fighting for access to the water in the Colorado River.
And Charlie, I hear that people who live on the reservation, they have to travel for miles just to get to the nearest water pump for water, for drinking, cooking, bathing. But I also hear that they're still concerned about that water. Why is that?
So again, a lot of people don't know this, but the Navajo Nation, unfortunately, is home to hundreds of abandoned uranium mines. So this mining was happening at a time here in the United States when there was a race to create nuclear weapons, and they wanted to get their hands on that radioactive uranium. So essentially, the mining companies came in, got what they wanted, left these abandoned mines, and what happened during that process was that a lot of the environment was disturbed. So the contamination, the radiation actually was able to seep down into the ground, underground, into that water. And unfortunately, people who were living in those areas were consuming that water, the contaminated water, drinking it, which is why we're seeing incredibly high rates of cancer across the Navajo Nation.
There is a bill in front of Congress right now that aims to help in some ways with this issue. What would that bill do?
So essentially what's happening here is that the Navajo Nation and the state of Arizona are trying to come to some sort of a settlement where the Navajo Nation would be able to get access to a portion of the water that currently belongs to the state of Arizona. So they were able, both sides, to come together and hash this out, and the tribe ended up approving the settlement. So that was the first hurdle. Now the second hurdle here is moving this bill through the federal government. And one sticking point that some people point to and say, hey, this is probably not going to go anywhere, is the price tag. So a part of this bill is a $5 billion price tag, which would be used to build some of the infrastructure that would be needed to be able to move the water from the Colorado River to some of the driest parts of the reservation.
All right, Charlie, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and good to have you on such an important topic here. We appreciate it. And by the way, you can listen to Reclaim the Lifeblood of Navajo Nation everywhere that you get your podcast, or scan the QR code on your screen.